Good morning and hello again. This is Charlie Belfontaine, and we have the Chicago housing experts right here on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And I'm
When people get taken advantage out there, and unfortunately, it happens way too much.
all right. The first two were not the correct answer, but the last one was. All right. So very good. Patrick, please introduce yourself.
Sup. Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer, Loftus Law. Find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok, Loftus Law. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Loftus Law. Like the socks, Steve.
Like the socks is always good.
Thank
And
you.
Joey, my favorite mortgage broker, what's going on in the world? And let everybody know who you are.
Hi, I'm Joey Matthews, NMLS 1230694. I'm a mortgage dude. The VA Loan Nerd. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com across all the social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. In mortgage world, we are trading at the low end of a range in a bad way for mortgage-backed securities. Well, I mean, though technically, when we're trading at the low end, I usually like to see it when we're in a range because that means that we will start moving up again. We like to bottom out and then move back up. But we have been in this range for quite some time now. At least almost 6 months. Almost 6 months to the nose between. So yeah, it's very boring. We're gonna have the FOMC. The minutes get released today.
What is that, FOMC?
Oh my goodness. I know what this means.
Oh.
The federal it's the reserve. It's the last meeting they had. Dude.
The federal.
And now I can't think of their
It'll come to you.
Federal Open Markets Committee. It's the
There it
Open
is.
Markets Committee. Sorry.
There's
It's
no-
the
there's
Fed-
not two
it's
Fs.
The meeting minutes released from the last time the Fed met, right? And that's really it. I mean, next week is going to be a more volatile week than this week because it's all data. So I'm trying to lock all of my loans before the data comes out because I'm just
You think
too
that
nervous about the economy.
is that too? It's that risky, huh?
Everything is risky
Yeah.
when data's coming out. And you know what? Honestly, because I locked, it's going to be good for rates. But we have a good Reno policy here, so I'm also not terrified of it.
All right, now I need to know what that means. I'm sorry for the dumb question.
Renegotiation policy. So it protects you from moving up, but if rates significantly improve, we can still drop your rate.
How do you
No,
find?
Nobody understands what Joey is talking about.
There's a lot of truth to that, especially me, because I'm not the
keep asking
brightest.
deeper shit.
I'm not the brightest one that goes at that. But how does? I mean, I heard I've never had a loan go down. That's the whole thing.
That's awesome.
You've never worked with this guy. Well, no, that's not true. You have worked with this guy, but you also worked with this guy when rates were already at like the freaking bottom of the bottom of the bottom. So anyway, no,
Sheesh.
long story short is if there's a significant improvement in the rate market after you lock, you can do what's called a renegotiation down to whatever the market is currently at, right? But it's up to the loan officer to actually trigger the renegotiation. And some places have terrible renegotiation policies. The last place that I worked at had the most god-awful renegotiation policy in the history of time.
The less said about them, the better.
Yeah.
That's just saying. That's something actually I'd love to see him make a video on, just explaining it to somebody like me. How do I know this? What am I going to look for, and so forth. I think that's huge knowledge.
Yeah, not
Rates
that he
be
didn't
better.
just explain it, but okay.
Rates be better. You get
No, he did it here, but I want it on a video where we could use it. Now I know what you're saying. No, I want to make it on a video so that we can go ahead and get it. He's making fun of me. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I just realized that we're on video. Yeah. Well, you guys are on video. I'm just an idiot behind a screen.
I wouldn't go that far. You're behind the screen.
All right, now that everyone's turned it off,
Exactly.
Now we
This
can
was fun, guys.
now
This
we can
was-
talk about the real important
Well,
stuff.
Joey's helping my kid, right? And right now he's looking to sell his home that he lives in, and he lives down in the Memphis, Tennessee area. He's looking to sell his home, or maybe even rent it out, and then he wants to buy a new construction loan. And he just called me up yesterday, and I don't know if he talked to you at all about this, Joey. But he asked me, goes, when I get a real estate agent to sell my house, what is, what's the average interest or commission that they should get? And I said, well, some people are charging 3.5 and 2.5, but I would still make them tell me what they're going to do for that money. And he came back and goes, they're charging me 6%, is
No.
what they wanted. And
I'm kidding.
yeah, no, I'm with you right there. It's or wait a minute. Do you know something different? Did he misunderstand
No.
something?
No, not at all. Not at all. I thought you were talking about a new build. Sorry, I'm out.
No, this is the real estate commission, and
Yeah, this is a selling. This is totally different. My head is in the wrong place.
Is everything okay, Joey?
No, I don't think it
Dude,
is.
it's really not. It's really not.
I don't hear any
man,
children
yeah.
behind him. It must confuse him.
we'll get you back on track.
Or
Joey,
farm
don't
animals.
worry. Or farm animals. Oh my goodness, Steve. I mean,
Yeah.
what happens when a real estate agent is telling a seller they want 6% to sell their house?
Well, first of all, if the 6% is on this, so if I'm selling the property,
Yeah.
if 6% is on my side, that means that's what I'm charging the the seller on my own. I can't give a co-op to the seller and say, hey, what do you want to pay them? It's their decision. It's always been their decision. The only difference is now, since August 17th of last year, with the NAR settlement, you cannot give a co-op. So in other words, my commission, every time I go to do a listing presentation, is what it is based on what I charge. So if someone is telling a seller 6%, 7%, 3%, 4%, whatever they're telling them, it better be just their side and not the other one, because that's not how it works. However, there are certain agents that are still doing that. And so I'll go to a listing presentation. They'll be like, oh, I interviewed so-and-so from this company. And they said, well, he's going to charge me this much. And I was like, he's charging you that alone? He goes, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you may want to is something that is illegal unless it is just him. And if he's charging you that much, well, then I would have to tell you, you may want to think about hiring someone else, because they are obviously trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah, make sure if you're a seller, make sure you understand what it is that's being pitched to you, because things, we all know things have changed in some ways since last year, August 17th, as Steve referenced. And what I think you need to understand is if someone's pitching you 6%, which was sort of the average, I guess, and then I'll get a lot of people going, it's never been that, it's been 5 and it's been 5.5, or whatever it is in your locality. Let's use 6 as a placeholder, but understand that now that may be just what you're paying the list agent, and then if the buyer comes through and makes an offer, and that offer is, I want to pay X amount for the home and have you pay this much for a real estate broker commission. If that's above and beyond what the list agent is already expected to collect, then now instead of paying 6 like it was before the settlement, now you're paying 8.5%, 9%, whatever it is. And in fact, the way that it has been pitched is made it worse for sellers than before the settlement. And so if whatever someone's pitching you, if it's more than 2.5%, 3.5%, if you're on the list side, make sure that they spell out if it's 6%. Does that mean 6% between the two? And what happens if there's not an agent on the other side? Do you get the whole 6? Make them answer those questions. What if what if it's dual agent? Do you get the whole 6, or do you get some lesser amount? And beyond that, whatever they tell you, make sure that is reflected in the written listing agreement, because if they tell you one thing and then when the written listing agreement says something else, guess what? The writing is going to control. And I'm a lawyer. If in any situation, especially one where you're talking about figures of these amounts, whatever was said verbally doesn't really matter. It really boils down to what is in writing on the piece of paper that you're ultimately going to sign.
Well, you also, to emphasize and to jump off of that, segue, whatever.
Please jump off.
Yes, jump off.
There's no mercy. Poor Steve.
So you really should understand what you're paying for what you're getting to, by the way, because
I was thinking the same thing.
Some sellers are like, oh, well, this person told me 1%. I'm like, great, you should go to that person. Well, wait, aren't you going to negotiate? No, I'm not. The reason being is because that 1% is a joke of an agent. And sorry,
Well, you
it's
can't
true.
say that just
Yeah, I
because of the
can.
number. No, it's like, what are you getting for the money is the more
Right.
important thing.
But if they're only charging 1%,
Well, maybe they're
mean-
not doing anything.
right, that's my
Well,
point.
yeah, I
But
that's
if
my
that's
point.
what the client wants,
That's-
then
well,
that's a whole
so
different story.
I get
a
that.
1%
Hold on.
broker is working off volume, and so they're them, and you're only going to get whatever piece of them that is available. And if they've got, because they charge 1%, if they've got 4 times the listing of someone that is a full price broker, I mean, even if that person is excellent and knows everything about what they're doing, and you're not going to get. They're not going to get them. You're going to get someone who is lesser than. So just you have to understand how that is meant to work. I mean, business is intended to make money.
And also understand that the number one broker in the city, okay, does not charge a less of a discount point because of the fact he has to. He does what he does, and everyone hires him because he's that good. So the fact is that I'm not saying they're a joke of an agent. I should have said it that way, but I'm just saying it's a joke in the fact of like, this is your largest asset you're probably going to own. Do you want a person that's going to charge you very little and do very little, or do you want the best?
Yeah,
Well, Steve, everything just sells no matter what I do, right?
No.
That was meant to either trigger you or
Oh, no.
to tee you
It
up
does-
for a way to explain
It
that
doesn't,
that
because
is not the case.
If you don't price the property right, I don't care what it is. It's not going to go. The value is going to be dictated by a buyer, not a seller, not their agent.
They could have wants and wishes, but you're absolutely right. And
Wish in one hand and see which one,
Doo-doo in the
Joey,
other.
what's the second word there that he was going to say?
I believe it's crap. I could say crap.
I think so, but we're going to find out. We got thumbs up.
Sweet.
So
Devin's like, what did I do today to deserve this?
I don't know. It's like kind of nuts. So, one of the conversations I've been having with other home inspectors, I've been trying to coach them in how we do it. And, it's coming by, you got to figure out who you want to be. What is going to be your services? What makes you unique? And we ended up, finding out all the different tools that all the other home inspectors use. And we made a big list out of it. We found all the unique services they did. We made a big list out of it. Then we found out other things that we could add that other people didn't do. In other words, we go to make themselves more valuable. So, where I'm going with this, Steve, what does an agent do? You have like a list off the top of your head that you could start giving me, like professional photos or print ads in magazines or whatever? What would warrant extra commission payments like that? Does that make sense what I'm asking or not?
Yeah, I mean,
What's a good
big
bang for
photo-
the buck
A
for a
big
real estate
photo of
agent?
Steve on the front of the listing.
that is worth another percent.
What would you two?
It's depending on what you're going to do. So, for instance, there's only been one time I've charged more than I would charge on an everyday basis. And the reason being is because I helped the gentleman moved and he moved to California and he's like, hey, can you help me find an art person that packs up art professionally? And then I need you to also drive my car across town and put it into a semi that will take the car to California. So he had me do all this extra work, and I said I would do it for an extra percent. And what I think the value you bring is the experience. It's also the fact of, can you talk the talk, right? Can you walk the walk? In other words, if you have the experience and you know what you're doing and you can provide that value to that client, then what's that worth to you? What's that worth to the client?
What should be the minimum amount of experience then? And I don't want years. I want transactions. I'm sorry. I don't care. You could be doing this for 200 years and never do one transaction. That's no
I
experience.
mean, I would say at least a good dozen, if not more transactions a year
right.
to be able to.
bare minimum, and then the
Yeah.
more the better.
I mean,
of course. That's
there's-
experience.
I mean, in last year, 73% did 0 transactions. 0.
A lot of people don't get that. I
I did 27.
Everyone
so-
thinks that it's all
And
commodity.
that was low
based.
for me.
Yeah, if you're not moving, think about it. If you're not moving one home a month, I think it's fair to say that you're not living up to your potential.
Well, that or you should be in this business in the first place.
Well, I mean, if some people, their potential's quite low, and it's sad, but that's how it is.
Well,
Not
hey, Joey,
anyone,
do you want
not
that?
anyone on this
Hey,
broadcast.
Joey,
We
do you
are
want that
all potential.
housewife that basically just does this for extra, money or whatever
Sir, don't make my job harder.
to come to you and to ask you to help it? No, you don't. You want the experienced realtor that does multiple transactions, that's building a business and so on. So the fact is, Charlie, the question of what makes you better than someone else as far as the time for, or if it's not experience, or excuse me, if it's transactions, is that what you said?
More so, what if I was selling a home? What would be the questions I would want to ask the attorney? What would be the questions I want to ask the real estate broker? What would be the question? Well, I don't know if I have to deal with the mortgage broker yet, unless I'm buying.
No, first of all, I'm the first contact, right? So the questions you should ask me is, what's your experience? How much have you sold around here? Have you, what's your average that you do? What's your average price point? How many properties have you sold in the last 12 months? How many buyers have you helped? Who are your resources? Who are your connections? Do you get a guy for anything? Like, all these things should be questions you ask. I mean, if I put a list of questions down, there's got to be 12 at least to see if that realtor makes sense to work for you. And that's my opinion, because there are way too many agents out there that do not know what they're doing. They give us a bad name. They don't do what they're supposed to do. I mean, I have no problem coming in and being the hero, right? And rescuing the deal. But at the same time, they should have done their due diligence before they hired someone who was a family friend or a, whatever. When my brother sold his house, I could have worked for him. We had a conversation and I decided, you know what? It's probably not a good idea that I work for him because he's family. So I think it really comes down to what you know, and what value you can bring to that client.
Now, how do I know that somebody's not gaslighting me, though?
Be a little bit more, explain that a little bit more.
In other words, my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I've been a real estate agent for 10 years, and I've done about 300 real estate transactions every year. How do you know I'm not lying?
Well, you can look them up. You can actually have...
How?
Well, I have a digital business card that has all my stuff on it, all my transactions, all my testimonials, everything. So if I can provide that evidence, as you just mentioned, that would give you peace of mind to understand who I am, what I'm about, what my team's about, why I'm successful, why I'm all sphere of influence, all SOI, no billboards, no benches, no. I mean, I've been in a magazine, sure,
the
but
real estate hammer.
What's that?
You don't want to be the real estate hammer.
He's the real estate top dog.
Yeah, top dog. That's
I
right.
want- I want
hammer,
to
the
A top dog.
dog.
I'm not the top
I
dog.
want
I'm
to
an
see
A top
Steve
dog.
Davis's face on the side of a CTA bus.
I want to see Steve Davis's face on the side of a Tesla Cybertruck.
Nice. Joey got the hookup. He's got the hookup. He just said
I know a guy.
Not allowed
So
at Safe Farm
I
Stadium.
mentioned to my wife the other day, so she's a dog trainer, and she graduated through the academy, which is the highest of.
Does she know Top Dog?
Actually, she does. She does. She lived in Hawaii, so she does know that gentleman. Yes.
Oh Lord.
Yes. Yep. But anyway, going back to what I was saying,
Gentleman.
she, well, benefit of the doubt. She's a dog trainer or whatever, and I was like, you should wrap your Jeep. And she goes, I would never do that, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, well, I got a buddy of mine who wrapped his Cybertruck and gets 3 to 4 leads a week. And she's like, no way, I could never do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why not? She's like, and then she said, and this is the best thing ever. She goes, no, because the problem is, even if I wrapped it and I got a bunch of clients, people would also know that crazy woman who can't drive. I'm like, well, you just answered that question. So it's like, well, I mean, that was the
I
best.
appreciate the honesty.
When she said that, I was dying because I was like, oh, that's so true. You do scream at people a lot.
I would have so many 1-star reviews if I had our business name on my truck. I am not the good person.
So it is impressive that that Joey did do that, and it does as well as he does, but he probably isn't a bad driver.
And he's kind.
Now there's another gentleman out there. I wouldn't call him a gentleman. there's another guy out there who wrapped his cars, and he's an eclectic person anyway. So I don't know if that was a good thing for him or not to do. So I think it all depends on the person.
I want to see my wife's face when I come home with our car wrapped in Loftus Law logos, and just her be like, "No."
See, that's point taken right there.
This is go get rid of that immediately.
Yeah, I'm not. Into
My
that
mom
side.
back in the day, she's a realtor. She had one of those magnets that you put on the
That's
driver's
the other
side.
thing we were talking about. Yep.
Sorry, Mom, if you're listening, but nah, that's no bueno.
I mean,
Well,
I
I do have those, and
I'm
I only,
sure you do.
But I only use
a
them
dork.
whenever I have to park in a sticker parking area in Chicago.
A sticker parking area, so that helps.
What is that called? Where
What?
you got a permit.
A permit parking?
Parking, yeah.
What does that have to do with the sticker on your car, or
Oh,
a magnet on your car?
There's a law in Chicago that if your truck is identified as a work vehicle and you're working in the area, there's a piece of paper you put in the windshield.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know this? There's a
Guys,
piece
this
of paper.
is Charlie Belfontaine's truck. We can't ticket it.
That's
you
not
kidding
true.
me?
But you put the name, the phone number, it has the ordinance for the city of Chicago. You could download it right off
Oh,
the
wait, so
city of
what does that
Chicago.
have to do with a magnet on the side of your car?
Because your car has to be identified as a corporate vehicle
Right.
or
So
a
if you
business vehicle.
so if you put that magnet on the side of the car,
you identified it.
then you're identified. You don't have to necessarily put something in your window.
Does,
Or do
well,
you?
From
You
what
just-
I
'cause
understand,
you just
it,
said we did.
well, you have to fill it out. You got to put
So what's
the
the
address.
point of the magnet?
Point of the magnet is identify the vehicle as a commercial vehicle. But then you have to have the sign in the window to abide by the ordinance as well. That
got
says
it.
what house
You got
you're
to add
working
that
on.
in, Charlie. We're very
I
confused
thought I
over here.
did. I'm sorry.
You should have.
Too much coffee.
You should have
this
seen the
morning.
confused face of Patrick. Which
I
is
understand what
Never
you're saying.
happening.
See, Patrick understood. Joey, you understood, right?
What I understood mainly is that Charlie is a big dork and has a magnet for the side of his car. Dork.
Got him.
Wow.
Hire me as your lawyer.
I have coined Boomers Unite. We need to go ahead and get even with this.
I want to
man.
see Boomer Voltron just come together.
You're like the
and
young
then,
boomer, though, right?
And then they have to
I
like,
am.
you
Like
know,
my mom's 80. You're not even close to
No,
that.
I'm on
by
the tail
a
end.
decade,
Yeah.
more than a decade.
we were having this conversation last week after the
64?
show. Evidently, there's like Generation J or some nonsense. I don't even know.
Generation J.
It's old people. They have, they're chronically online, right? And they've
To all
got,
my listeners
there's
out there,
too
this
much
name is
happening for
Patrick
them
Walker.
online, and they need to just go out and touch grass.
Joey's
once
too
in a
quiet
while.
over there.
I'm just listening to the nonsense that's happening
Well, come on. What do you
in
got?
the studio right now.
You got some opinions on boomers.
We're trying to make Jesus' job
I love my mom.
as hard as possible. He's
Yeah.
gonna have to find something to clip and put on social media of this.
What did you say, Joey?
Good luck.
Your mom
I
what?
love my mom, dog. I just said I love my mom. Shoot.
I said you live with your mom.
And you know
Oh,
what,
no,
though?
I did.
All this stuff coming up here is how people get screwed by really
all did.
estate agents and stuff like that. I know. I'm trying to get us back into this thing.
Absolutely not.
And Joey, I remember it used to be watch out for predatory lenders. Predatory lenders. It was kind of like a catchphrase almost. What? I mean, is that even allowable by laws anymore, or is that enforceable by laws anymore?
I mean, predatory lending is obviously it's not allowed, but you still see it's essentially a subjective term at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's things that are allowed that I would not do, which is why companies like Navy Fed, USAA, I do not care. Veterans United, things of that nature exist. Yeah.
Well, what should I be watching out for?
they-
I guess that's the where I was going with that.
I mean, people
Loan
that-
estimates that are not locked, Joey.
Yeah, dude. It's so hard to define just because it is so subjective.
Well, Joey, you've told us
Incredible
stories
cost,
about
you know?
about people that get quoted, these fantastical rates and payments, and then
yeah.
the script gets flipped on them a week before closing when they get the closing disclosure, and it's like, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that if somebody's presenting you with one of these loan estimates and it doesn't have the box mark that says checked that says locked, that would be one way of
huge.
trying to ascertain if somebody is trying to bamboozle you or not.
That's absolutely a great way to ascertain that. I know I just talked to you guys like what 2 months ago, a month ago. Had the lady reach out. She was like, "Oh, you're the highest of the lenders I looked at." Blah blah blah. I was like, "All right, cool. Well, I mean, good luck." I stay following up with people because I get excited when people buy houses. I'll say that until I'm dead. It is exciting.
It is.
But
It's fine.
when closing came
Thrilling.
around, when closing came around, I talked to her. I said, "Congratulations!" I saw she had closed because you look at the website and see that it closed. And yeah, she's just like, and I asked how it went, and she was like, "I wish I had worked it with you from the beginning. I got points. I had a higher rate than you quoted. I had all of these things." I was like, "Yeah, there's no such thing as that unicorn riding a rainbow eating birthday cake. It is what it is."
You messed up. Is that what you said?
That's
No,
not
well, I just said this is the problem with my industry is that when you're honest up front, you lose to a liar. Granted, those people weed themselves out of the business, but new liars come
they
in.
get replaced. Yeah,
Do
they don't go away.
They don't
just
go
get
away.
replaced.
They just get
They get
more and
replaced,
more
yeah.
annoying.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
You go to a
it's-
different
it's
presentation,
awful.
like, oh, I met with so and so, blah, blah, blah. And you, as a professional, i.e., me, can't go, well, what'd you think of that tool? Like, I can't say that. But I said, well, what is it that you're looking for in a realtor? Because, I mean, I know exactly what their pitch is
Yeah.
and what they've done. And there's been very few times that things like that go the other way where they get hired and I don't. But then I come to the rescue when they listed too high, they dropped it 5 times, and the seller finally gets annoyed. But the problem is once you're under a listing agreement with another agent, you can't go after that listing. You can't go after that person. And if you do, then you can have, run into problems or whatever, and you don't want to deal with that. But
Well,
at the same
here's-
time, you do get frustrated because they're not being taken care of the right way.
Here's where, as a consumer, getting multiple opinions, quotes, whatever it is, can be to your benefit. Because if there's one, let's say you get 3 quotes, 4 quotes, 5 quotes, whatever it is, and there's one that's
6.
that's kind of an outlier, and in a good way for you, you need to investigate that before you go like, all right, I found the one. You need to investigate as to why that's an outlier, and you need to be very skeptical. I mean, on a rare instance, that outlier may in fact be just someone with a better deal, but especially when it comes to mortgage rates, I mean, Joey, by and large, all y'all are selling pretty much the same rate. It's just dressed up differently. And so if someone knows that if they pitch a lower rate, they're more likely to get a client or a customer, they'll do it with the notion that once they've got you, right? And it's like, that's why it's so important. If everyone's at 7 and someone's like, hey, I can do 6.5, you need
Better
to
read
really,
the fine print.
You really, really need to figure out why that person is so special. I mean, do they have their own pool of money, buried in the backyard that they're gonna bring to closing?
It's
or-
interesting you bring that up because of the fact that is something that Joey probably runs into all the time. I certainly do, where they're like, oh, well, this person's going to do it for 6%, and the other 3 are 7%. I'm like, why do you think that is? So I'll preempt that so that they understand. Listen, you really should understand why they're that way. It's not because they're magical. And what is it, on a rainbow with a horseshoe and a cake? Something.
There was a pony
Whatever,
involved.
It's
pony.
the whole thing. Yeah.
Was it
yeah,
unicorn?
Yeah.
It's a unicorn.
Unicorn riding a rainbow eating some birthday cake.
There it is.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Okay, I
It's a
still
vibe.
can't remember. Anyway, so that being said, like preemption and obviously asking them, like, why do you think that is, and so on, they need to understand that actually is not a reality. It is, you're buying points, you're doing something, and what you need to know is why is that rate so low? And
Yeah.
there's always fine print that nobody reads.
And then, in your world, when you're doing a listing presentation and you go through and someone's already come through and they're like, yeah, I can get, 50,000 more that
I was
that
thinking that
they're
too.
not going to be able to get. And you're just like, if you listed it at 50,000 more, you're actually going to end up losing money. You're going to end up selling it for less than the, here's
lump.
the
I'll tell you what,
number.
your property's worth $500,000. Good, put it at 450. I'll get you another 50,
Right.
and I'll actually
put
get you 525 most
or,
likely.
or put it at 550 and you'll get 475, right?
No, you won't sell it. If you're lucky,
There you
you
go.
may get 475.
There you go.
But you'll lose money. The biggest thing that I've found in this market and any market is that, and if you don't price it right, you don't market it right, and you don't have the right representation, you're going to leave money on the table. Your largest asset, most likely, that you're ever going to own. What is important there for you? Is it the fact of a cheap labor, if you will, so cheap broker? Or is it someone who's going to get you more money? You do the math.
Cheap broker sounds great.
Seriously.
I go with cheap broker.
I'm sure you would. That's
So many
how
people
special
do,
you
though.
are.
That's the thing.
point. But that's also a for sale by owner. They think that if they do it themselves, they're going to get more money.
Yeah.
Well, guess
and
what's going to happen?
Statistically
You're going to
speaking,
get less
they
money
don't. Yeah.
because you don't know how to price your property, for the crying out loud.
And you don't know how to present it. You know, you may think you know what declutter means. You probably
Oh
don't.
my God. iPhone photos, people, these are not good photos.
Yeah. If you're taking it, by the way, if you're taking a photo in front of a mirror, have some pants on, please.
Nope.
We're gonna, I'm gonna. Yeah,
No one even knew how to respond to that. I'm
Joey
like,
Matthews, the VA loan nerd, selling his house in Arizona, no pants. Heck
hey,
yeah.
that's
Nails,
why
baby. This house sells itself, baby.
That's why he has his sunroof open and just standing out there like this with no pants on, but he's got a
Wasn't
shirt.
there
Well,
a
that-
plumber or something like that had him sitting on a toilet, plastered on his
Yeah,
door?
yeah. There's a
Yeah,
few of
there's
those.
a meme or something like that comes in there. But no, it's promising the world and under delivering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like my whole beef with corporate America, quite frankly. It's like we put all the money and everything else first, and our brains are kind of focused that way on how can I get more money. And then you all of a sudden the greed ends up kicking you right in the buttocks. You know, and it doesn't
Shareholder
really help.
value, Charlie. That is what the world is all about.
I'm not in that world. I live in my own little unique world.
Well, we
where
know
it's
that,
all
Charlie.
client-focused.
Well, yeah.
But even in our
Imagine what
business,
Charlie's world looks like.
you know, I was doing a little bit of a survey, you know, even in our business here with other home inspectors and trying to listen. You know, when you tell a real estate agent you want them to refer your business, what are your big selling points that they come across? And, you know, some guys will tell me, well, the agents want good communication. They want clear report writing. I think, okay, those are kind of valuable. I like that, you know. And then other ones start going after speed.
Honesty.
They go after minimal things found. I don't want you to be a deal killer, a nitpicker. I don't want you, and nobody ever defines those words. They just get to call you that word. And, you know, so I don't want anybody that's going to be there more than an hour, hour and a half. I don't want anybody who's going to write more than 15 things. I don't want a whole bunch of other stuff. And guys being home inspectors are conforming to that because they think that real estate agent is going to refer them. And then it's also price because once they get another person, well, some of your clients, I'll save you $100 and make it look great. You know,
That
I've been told that
race to
before
the bottom on
from-
price. Mm-mm.
I've been told that before from buyers, and they'll be like, "Well, they're 600 and you guys is 7." I'm like, "I'll give you the extra $100. Please go with my guys because these other people are not good."
but if I can't come out and explain my value, this is what I'm trying to explain to the other home inspectors. You know, but I get it. When the real estate agent is doing the referring, then the real estate agent ends up being your salesperson. And if they don't really value your business, they're not really going to be able to do a good job at it. And that's my whole
Well, they
thing
also
is,
wouldn't refer you.
Me? That's not true.
No,
I
I'm
got
saying
some
if-
very good agents that refer business to us. I just don't rely on them.
No, I
And-
understand that, but I'm saying if we don't trust you, then why would we refer you?
And as objective
I'll
as
tell you. No. Now you're just trying to trigger me.
No,
all
I'm
right?
not. It was a question.
I'll tell you why.
It's easy
Because
to
you
trigger
came
him.
to
getting a
you
little
came to
loud.
one of my I'm getting a little louder because I'm getting worked up. You came to one of my open houses and you gave me a little goodie bag. All right, I'll refer you to my client. You know, I know nothing
Cookies.
about you, or maybe you put a candy dish in my broker office. They know nothing about them, you know.
How
but
cool's the
everybody,
candy dish? Is
they
it-
just want to get a test
the
drive
full
out of this
size
stuff.
candy
glass?
bars, or is it
No,
nonsense?
Crystal?
It's trick or treat candy. size.
No,
Yeah, that's not worth
You're
that.
you're not standing out with fun size candy.
That's why
But and I
Joey had
answered
to
you
buy the
why.
largest Cybertruck there is.
That's why you can't afford
I
pants.
got an average sized Cybertruck, I'll have you know.
Do you
It's
have
big
average
enough.
size pants too? I mean, what the
Oh,
hell? We're
man.
going downhill. Might as well just keep going.
Yeah.
You know. Are we out? Oh, geez, and we got like we're only 1/3 of the way through.
Are they
the
the
whole
zip
show.
ones? Do they have like that tie string? Tie string?
I don't know where we're going, but no, it goes right back to
They
the
Velcro?
why, and this is where I'm going. Like if I wanted to
Terrible.
find out about real estate agents, honestly, I would ask for the people that you're referring business to. And I would check out their reviews and see where it is. And if I start finding people are like, oh yeah, they were great, they were fast, they were, they didn't find anything wrong, and then all of a sudden I see 6 months later they missed this, and this.
You know what happens with that?
People get angry.
An inspector out there got into serious trouble for not doing their job.
Well, that was just recent.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's actually a friend of mine too. I really like him. I'm sorry, but that you're talking about I think it was Grandview Homes
That's correct.
made the news and stuff like that. In fact, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and Joey looked it up.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
To find out about that stuff. But there's a difference between going in the attic and looking in there and recognizing a whole bunch of issues and being able to
Doing your job and actually doing what you're supposed to do.
knowing.
Don't say you
what
went in
it
the attic
is.
when you didn't go in the attic. That's the point.
Yeah.
Right. He said
Don't
he
say you
went in
did
the
something
attic,
if
and
you
it's
didn't.
obvious he didn't. There's a difference there. And
There's
that's an
many
individual.
reasons why it's obvious.
You'd rather admit not going in the attic than admit that I just missed all those dead cats.
Yeah,
And carcasses.
I guess where it comes in there, but it's that value
And other
proposition
creatures.
stuff.
Of havoc.
I mean, Patrick, same thing. What's and I don't know because I almost want to say that all attorneys are a commodity.
It's true.
Well, tell me
all
it's
the
not
same.
true. I want to be wrong.
No, we're all the
know?
same. Except for me, I've got a man bun.
That is true. I vouch for
Well,
that.
it's only because you play hockey.
Now, now you're just messing with me here. I don't want to hire you because of the man bun.
I mean, look,
But
is
I've
sporty.
gotten to know you, and quite frankly, I think you're
that-
smarter than most people, and you don't BS me.
2010.
you see, when you sit there and you try to list out all of what you
not
provide
easy.
and all the features, it's you end up sounding like you're bloviating about yourself.
favorite.
Big words again.
As
I
a
like that word, though.
as a someone I know, someone who I cherish his favorite word.
Exaggerating.
But look, I think the easiest thing for me to say is, look, if you have concerns about what it's like to work with me, you Google Loftus Law. You'll find there's 62 different opinions. Go on Redfin's client portal. You'll find there's
Social proof does mean a lot.
there's 30 plus reviews there. Even on Avvo. I mean, those are fairly old. I haven't been asking for reviews on Avvo in a long time, but according to ChatGPT, Loftus Law has something like 150 plus reviews online that are average 5.0. So it's like, believe me or believe the people that don't really have they don't have a reason to say anything false about their experience. And I think that if I've helped 150 plus people, and trust me, that's only a smallish percentage of the people I've helped buy and sell homes. If that's my average, I mean, look, what more do you want to hear me say? I mean, if there are things specific to your situation that you want to make sure that I can take care of, whether it's, can we close a sale and a buy on the first day? Not my preference, but we can do it. Can I sign documents remotely? Do you have facilities for that? Absolutely. We've got more
Those
than
are
one.
good questions.
We've got a few different ways for you to do that. Do I have to be at the closing? Absolutely not. If you're a seller, if you're a buyer, probably yes, unless it's cash. There are things that if you've got specific needs, yeah, certainly ask me the question so we don't get on down the line and find out that there's some sort of issue there. But otherwise, if you're just trying to figure out who I am and what I'm about, and if people enjoy working with me, well, go ask them.
here's one.
They've put their opinion online for your convenience.
I think here's a good question. I did read before you and I met, because right now I just refer you, obviously. But I referred another attorney, and my client ended up. Well, that was before I met Patrick. I didn't even know him then.
Okay.
Look, Joey,
Hold on a minute, let
people
me-
betray me all
I did not
the
betray
time.
him. I didn't even know him.
I have got
would
so many
never.
knife marks in my back you would not believe.
She called me up complaining that she never got to talk to the attorney that I referred. She was always, what do they call the helpers?
Yeah, with the
Not
paralegal,
Paralegal.
or the legal
Paralegals.
assistant. You
What do
know,
you call
the
paralegal
helpers?
is like
Sorry, I didn't know.
elves. Yeah, I mean, a paralegal is a, like, you know, a person that has received some education. I believe there's a credential for it. So, you know, if you're not like an official paralegal, I think legal assistant. But I mean, you know, once you have some experience, the existence of that credential sort of falls into the background. It's, you know, are you good or not? But yeah, that's a common thing. And I do have a paralegal who I work with, but when it comes down to the important stuff, I don't leave it up to them, because if you wanted to hire a paralegal, you could hire them and just, you know, pay them what a paralegal earns for a real estate transaction and cut me out. I don't recommend that. I think that would be a bad idea. But you know, that's why for me it's important to retain the important aspects. There's no reason not to have some kind of relationship with your client. I mean, they're hiring you. You are a service. You are the service provider. Unless you have other attorneys who can stand in and deliver the same credential, experience, and service as you, I don't think it's appropriate to leave everything to support staff.
I don't think I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's some day-to-day stuff, you know,
Doc
documenting
prep,
whatever's,
you know, like,
getting
you
me
know,
these files and like condo docs and stuff. I can
getting
see that.
signatures. You know, look,
Yeah.
you could get, you know, things that you could literally get anyone to do. You don't want me doing that stuff, because that takes me away from the stuff that you really need me for: the negotiations, the discussing things, the answering questions, the being there when disputes arise. That's what I'm here for. The ministerial things I should be delegating to someone who can do it and doesn't need to be a credentialed lawyer for. I mean, that's part of offering a higher level of service. So, you know, having support staff, that's an add-on, that's a plus, not a negative. Relying too much on support staff is a negative.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just the real estate professionals. I've been finding this also in construction. You know, I just recently had, you know, like the insurance agents right now, or the agencies, I should say, they're doing like failure to renew notices, and they're doing failure to insure type, whatever those things are called, or canceling of insurances. I had one person, a simple 1,200 square foot bungalow roof that finally, you know, everything got done and I could talk about it again. But they got hit with a $32,000 bill. That's something that should have cost $15,000 because they went ahead and got a new roofer out there. If somebody sees that somebody is vulnerable, it seems like it's almost become normal and natural that you could take advantage of that person.
Well,
It's been like that since forever. There's a reason.
I'm just naive,
there's
naive,
a
and I'm
reason.
okay if you're telling
But
me
it's
I
also-
am.
Sure. Forever ago, they enacted the what the heck is it called? There's a statute in Illinois here where
The 3-day?
I don't know if it's 3. I don't remember that aspect of it, but it's like they have to, if you're contracting with a consumer and you're a construction contractor, you've got to give them this pamphlet, and you have to have a contract in writing. It has to say certain things. Ask 15 years ago me, I could have told you more about it because we were using it heavily in
We just
in
used it
litigation.
again to get a client out of another contract for
Yeah.
$55,000 for stupid plumbing.
It used to be a very powerful statute in
Yeah.
the sense that you could literally if a contractor hadn't abided by it, and this was before there was some appellate law that changed it, but there used to be like a 100% out if they hadn't fully complied with all of the aspects of the Home Repair and Remodel Act is what it's called. There we go. And so for some time, that was like a really, really great defense if you were getting sued by a contractor. And then over time, the case law developed, and they very much gutted that as a really full-on defense to it. It's a minor thing at this point. But yeah, I mean, you do have some consumer rights based on that. But the fact that that's been around a long time suggests that contractors have been and will continue to try to bamboozle people, you know, since forever and ago.
The other thing is too is when you're talking about roofs or you're talking about anything substantial, they will give you a number based on, you know, everyone thinks, oh, it's going to cost 20 grand for this roof. Well, the roof is a 10 by 10, so no, it's not. The roof is 40 by 30, maybe it's 20 grand. I don't know. So the fact is like it's kind of the same thing when people think, oh, you got to put 20% down to buy a house. No, you don't. It all depends on the situation. I just talked to a client yesterday, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do this. We're going to do this. I'm like, look, the inspection report says that you have 5 to 7 years left on the roof. You don't have to do anything right now. Oh, well, that's going to cost me 20 grand. No, that's actually a really small roof. You're probably looking at anywhere between 8 to 10. I can't guarantee it, but that's why we get roofers out there and get you quotes. So the fact is that there's always these assumptions. And then when you think you're talking to a professional, which you probably are, but they're going to try to take advantage based on whatever the situation may be. You know, it happens to all of us. You know, someone's 500, Patrick's 800. I'm 3%, the other person's 2%. Charlie's, 500, the other person is 400.
Charlie,
don't discount my prices.
Charlie,
Or
some
more.
people charge $7,000 for a water heater.
There it is. And Patrick knew right where I was thinking. He knows how to trigger these things. But I just had another one recently. It was galvanized plumbing in a house that was like pre-World War II. So somewhere, in the 30s. But it's definitely over 60 years old, over the lifespan of the galvanized
How big is the
plumbing.
house?
This was in the South Shore neighborhood, and it was actually one of the smaller ones. So probably around 2,500 square feet.
So that's about what, 40 grand for the plumbing? How much?
If you let me
Guarantee.
get the story, I'll do
Quote
it
it
this
and
way.
guarantee that price.
Because you
All
got all the plaster, you got all that. Because most likely in the 30s, you got plaster houses with lath.
I could do that myself.
Well, they didn't. Yeah, it was still everything was a ranch and the basement was open, so they were able to drop everything down, made it easier. But we found a leak in the plumbing, and the plumber, because I live on the north suburbs of Chicago, and this is way on the south side, and he didn't want to go that far, so they ended up finding another plumber, and it was one of the billboard companies that's out there. I love the way everybody groans right away. And it was $2,000 to fix a leak. And I'm like, it was just a simple, right. It was just a simple leak, get it fixed, whatever. Mongering and tell them how their house is going to fall apart. You got to replace the supply and the waste plumbing here.
Yep.
And we're still in the Chicago, so we have to get permits for all this stuff. And yeah, things are going to be a little bit more expensive when it comes to doing all that stuff. They charged them $55,000 to go ahead and, do a repipe on this big ranch and stuff like that. It was like 3 bathrooms or something in the kitchen. And, I hear this, and then 2.5 days later, they called me up and saying, why didn't you tell us that this was all that bad, that everything in the plumbing needed to be replaced? Because it doesn't,
Right.
is why we said that.
Exactly.
And it's kind of what you're saying with the 75% life in the roof. And, we told them that, yeah, it's old, but here's the showers flowing. To me, everything is quality of life. And just because something is 60 years old doesn't mean you throw it in the garbage, right? If it's still working, we're going to leave it alone and let it work. And on these things, we were able to take a good hot shower. We had good water flow everywhere else. It didn't make sense to go ahead and do this. But this company fear-mongered them, told them how bad everything was and that they needed to do this right away. They signed the agreement for $55,000. The clients ended up calling me complaining, why didn't I tell them? And I told them because it's not true, you didn't need it. Well, it turned out the very next day, before the permits were even filed for, they sent a crew there and they ripped out all the supply and waste plumbing in the house. So now the house is uninhabitable, right? And, you run it. I use a website called HomeWise, all right? And HomeWise.
Not that
Twice,
one.
haven't you?
No,
Not
not
that
the
one.
condo one. This is for cost estimating. And a lot of
WYSE.
yeah, WYSE, HomeWise, one word. And if you just put in there like cost to repipe a house or HomeWise, you'll come up with the cost calculator. You type in a zip code, you do everything else. That came out to $15,000, all right, to do this size house with these number of bedrooms.
30 grand.
I shared that with them, and then the large company, because they went to go cancel, so the large company wanted to renegotiate. and they took 30,000 off the price of the bid. So they went from 55 to 25. And I said, yeah, but it's still 15 according to this. And granted, big companies are going to charge more. I get it. They have advertising, huge staffs. They got to pay for all that stuff. He ended up firing them all together and finding another local plumber who was able to do it for 12. All right, and put everything back in there again. The point I'm trying to make is there's ways to look at these things, and I get it that there's bad people everywhere. I'm all over that. And that's kind of the whole reason why I started this show, is to give more knowledge to people so they can protect themselves from the bad actors. That's it. And talking about bloviating, I think I just did.
I mean, look, it's tough out there. I mean, we tell these tales, and a lot of them are third-person sort of stories about this happened to someone else, and again, that's the nature of our business. And what that kind of leads me to think about is some of the disputes that we get into during the inspection negotiations, which it's like, typically you'll have a buyer, like, let's say you're a seller and the inspection happens and you've got someone like Charlie who's going to, bring up everything and be an alarmist and, all of the things.
Thank you.
And, now you've got a buyer who is calling up one of the billboard companies and getting that $55,000 quote. And meanwhile, you've got a seller who calls up, the local guy who's like, yeah, that's a $12,000 problem all day long. It can be quite, that leads you to kind of a stalemate, because the buyer is going to sit there and go, well, I don't believe your guy because your guy sounds too low. And, my guy's telling me it costs this amount. And, the seller's going, I don't believe your guy. You called the billboard guy. And, obviously that's going to be someone.
Like that, the billboard guy.
Well, because, it means I don't have to, like, shout out.
Right.
I don't want to give anyone free advertising.
We don't want to be. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail you.
And
That's
I'm not trying to.
stuff.
But so that's really a good example of where a lot of the skills that we develop get put to good use, because especially on the seller side, I'm going to need to figure out a way to convince the buyer that actually this one is the right one, right? Or to use my expertise from construction and my 20 plus years of being a real estate lawyer to be able to kind of defang some of the more, I'm not trying to throw Charlie on the bus. Some of the inspectors that are a bit more careless and add things in there and maybe describe them in ways that might alarm your average person to be able to defang these kinds of things. And, that not every lawyer out there is doing that skillfully is I guess my point. Well, they're doing things and they're just kind of like conveying messages. Okay, seller wants this, I'm going to send it to the buyer. Buyer wants this, and it's just, instead of filtering it through and trying to use those skills to get to a
brain power.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to have the right the right person that actually knows the experience, knows what you're getting, what you're going to run into, all those things. So when it comes to inspection, that's one of them. When it comes to being an attorney, becomes a lender, becomes an agent. You've got to know. I mean, a perfect example, which we know we don't have a lot of time, but have a good friend of mine who they already bought this, that, whatever. Now they got the mother-in-law, the father-in-law who are trying to buy a house, and they have a family friend agent, and that agent keeps missing on houses all the time because he's not doing his job. And the fact is like, you pay for what you get. So if they're a little further away, I told them I would go because of who they are, but it's also the fact of like, they're going to pay me for my services because that's what I can do and what I can bring to the table. Same thing as any of us in our professions.
No, I'm with you 100%, but we are out of time. Steve, can you give us
I've got something so important to say, but you'll have to wait till next week to hear it.
No, boy. Steve, give us your contact info, please.
Steve Davis, Real Brokerage, Kamar Group. You can reach me at 312-513-6314 or find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis.
Hey, I'm Patrick Loftus.
Oh, gosh.
I'm a Chicago real estate lawyer.
So sorry, people.
Find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on the TikTok, Loftus Law. Go look at my shorts on YouTube, Loftus Law.
Joey.
I'm Joey. I'm the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me at theVALoanNerd.com. You can find me across all social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. You can feel free to call or text me at 630-235-2405.
Get that man a beef sandwich.
Oh my God. My name is Charlie, Chicagoland Home Inspectors, 312-544-9180. And I'm probably talking the same way that they do without even trying.